Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Yerhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today we have Wayne Brown, and this guy, well, he's been through a lot. His story is remarkable, and he's all about helping others just like me. So let's just get right into it. Wayne, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a licensed clinical therapist in Buffalo, New York. I, in my daily life, I work with individuals and families, specifically focusing on issues of conflict, issues of developmental uh, struggles, including but not limited to substance use and gender dysphoria issues and miscommunication and ineffective communication, especially patterns and as it relates to historical trauma. Um,
Okay.
I also have, in my lifetime, I've founded a not for profit that helps people who have been diagnosed with a rare tumor called acromegaly. And it's the same tumor that Andre the Giant had. And that's a global organization that their sole function is to operate as emotional support for individuals with this rare condition.
Okay. Wow. You definitely do a lot. And what got you on this path?
Well, I started with the not for profit because I was diagnosed with this tumor back in 2003. And at the time, the internet was still very young. So there was a complete lack of support. There's a lack of understanding. It made it feel extremely lonesome to have this diagnosis. So, so I went out and sought people to talk to because it's a pituitary disorder. It has a significant impact on people's mental and emotional well-being, and being lonesome just makes everything worse.
It does.
So I found this whole community, and we really were able to offer significant support for people who are really struggling. Um, Eventually, I did retire from that organization uh, as I got married and had a family. Because there's only with very young children, there's only so many hours in the day, and running that
Yep.
organization is a 24-hour campaign.
Yep.
Um, Eventually, as my kids got older, my spouse and I talked about going back and furthering my education, and I went into social work and did that full time until eventually I developed a private practice where again I focus on family dynamics.
Hmm. Wow, that's amazing. And, I like that you decided, to take time to build your family, take care of your family, spend time with them, because as, entrepreneurs, it gets hard at times, like you said, there's only so many hours in a day. And it's always good to make sure that you have time to spend with your loved ones. So,
Raising your family is an active choice,
yeah, it is. It
and
definitely
it's
is.
one that's easy to forget when we get into the minutia of the day. You know,
Mhm.
when we get into the meetings and the emails and this and that, sometimes it has to be an active choice of, I need to turn off my computer. This can wait.
Yep, exactly. I know from me, I block off my calendar after 6 o'clock every night. It's like I need time for me, my friends, my family, all the
That's
and I didn't do that for months last year, and I was just going 12 to 15 hours a day, and you hit a wall where it's like, I
Yeah.
don't want to do anything, so you gotta take time for yourself.
No one gets a sticker at the end for working too hard.
Nope, nobody does. Nope, exactly. So when you're helping individuals and families, what do you usually focus on helping them with?
Well, I try and meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
when when you're dealing with family dynamics, it's extraordinarily complicated because within a family, everyone has their sensitive point, and no one knows how to push a button like someone who is family.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and operating within those dynamics, operating so that way you're treating the client effectively and not undermining the issues of the family members who have known the person a lot longer. It's it's an incredibly deliberate thing to have intentionality in how do I meet my client where they're at? What does my client need? How is the family member seeing it? How are they responding? How do I be helpful to my client who is my top priority without making the other people in their lives feel slighted, feel less than, feel unimportant?
Hmm.
And this is
Yeah.
incredibly important, especially when you're dealing with families with child or adolescent individuals, because at the end of the day, I'm going to be seeing the client for 1 hour out of what is it, 24-hour week,
Hmm.
125-hour week. So I get a very small percentage of their week.
Yeah.
And hopefully our time together is effective enough that the things that we talk about in our meeting can be applied throughout the rest of their week.
Hmm. And that's what's important. You really figure out what your clients need and work with them, where they're at.
Mhm,
And I do that with mine too. So it's like every client is different. You never have the same situation, but I found a lot of times you can work through a lot of issues with the same tool. Like you can really focus on, a communication style or mindset, things like that. And I know, like, for me and my family and even my friends, one thing that seems to be a common issue is communicating.
mhm, mhm.
Some people just don't communicate. So then you don't really know how they're feeling, what they need, what they want. So if you come across a client that's dealing with that same situation, what's some advice that you can give them?
With communication, that is so specific because you have to operate from a mindset that everyone is bringing the best effort they can to any circumstance every time they're engaging with another person. And that is an intentional choice sometimes to believe that this person is coming in with positivity in mind. Um, not everyone is, but if you start from that perspective, it helps in facilitating conversations. Then from there, it's understanding what the other person means, understanding how it's being heard, and really clarifying the communication. So every generation has its own communication styles. And last year, 2 years ago, the favorite terms of like skibbity in Ohio and all those other random nonsense words that were being used by the upcoming generation really were difficult to understand by people who are older, who in my generation, it was awesome and grody to the max and all these other terms that we had. It's understanding the words, it's understanding their intent, it's understanding what the other person is trying to communicate and being there to hear what they're saying and what they're intending to say.
I like that you brought that up because that's something that I've been focusing on improving myself over the last like 2 years is, listen to understand. Don't just listen to respond. A lot of us will have a conversation and somebody will be saying something and we already have a thought of a response before they stop talking. And it's important just to stop and just listen and understand what they're saying. And then when they're done, it's okay to take a few seconds to think of a response. That is okay. And one thing that I've found that's really cool is when you do pause after somebody stops talking, a lot of times they're gonna like have that uncomfortable feeling because nobody's talking, and they're actually gonna emphasize on whatever they were talking about, which is actually gonna help you understand even more. So,
Correct.
if I could give a tip, it's like just actually focus on listening and understand what others are saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the point you're bringing up is so important that gets taking the time to just digest intent, not just the words, because truly communication is only 7 to 10% words being shared. The rest is body language, tone, pitch, pace, all that stuff. Yeah, think about how many times over the past 10 years that you know someone or you yourself personally got into an argument via email or via text because intent was misattributed.
It happens a lot,
Yep.
especially in text, because we all text way too much. And
Right. And when you text me, I hear what you're saying in what's going on in my brain. So if you're in a good mood and I just found out that I lost a big client, you might be texting something very positive, very warm and supportive. And because my mindset is not supportive, maybe I'm hearing it as sarcastic or rude or offensive or challenging in some way when you're literally just checking in to say, "Hey, how you doing? How did your meeting go?" You don't
exactly.
know that I lost the account. You just were checking in because you care.
And like for me, like that knows me and that I text a lot. I use emojis and smiley faces and things like that as much as I can to try to, portray what I'm saying better. Because a lot of times it's like I'll type of text and I'll read it myself before I send it. And I'm like, well, that sounds rude. But if I put a smiley face at the end, it's all good.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I frequently get accused by younger people of sending aggressive texts because I use proper grammar.
yep, me too.
And I can't break the habit of using periods, commas, and apostrophes. Nor would I want to, because that's my sixth grade English teacher would come back from the grave and thwack me.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm never going to not use proper grammar in my texting, and younger people are never not going to find that to be aggressive or angry, which is absolutely not where I am. I'm just using grammar because it's a universal style of communication.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I use full sentences, full words. I don't do like BRB or I
Right.
don't even know if JK. I don't even use them. I just do the whole word, and I put periods and commas and all that. Because that's just how I am. And if somebody takes that wrong, well, I'm sorry. That's on them.
And you're right, it's on them, and it's still on us,
Yeah.
because if you text me something that I find offensive because I misunderstood it, then it's both of us to deal with.
Yep. You're right. You're
Even
right.
if even if malice was not intended, it becomes a I think that's the biggest issue that I see in family dynamic issues, is that the adults in these children and adolescents' lives forget the lessons that they learned as kids. We forget that, when we were growing up, we hated when our parents were dismissive or mean or thoughtless or didn't listen to everything we were saying when having a conversation. And we would get angry as kids and say, I'm never going to act like that, and then we end up doing the same thing
Yep.
because it's easier and it's quicker to say, hey kid, you're younger, you don't know anything, and that's just not true. Yeah, it takes more time to sit and have a conversation with your child. It takes more time to hear what they're trying to say, hear what they're trying to tell you, and it helps in effective communication.
Yep. It does. And it's going to help your child down the road because they're going to learn effective communication at a young age instead of, how a lot of children act, there's a conflict and they run away. And as adults, that doesn't work. That just makes everything worse and worse and worse. So it's like you gotta learn to confront the problems and deal with them and solve them at a young age. I think that's really important.
There was a old motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar, who had a
Oh,
line
he's
that
awesome.
I used to love, where he'd say, if you got to swallow a frog, you want to swallow that first.
Yep. Yep.
And so, when I'm looking at a checklist, if there are things that I got to do and there's something that I want to most not do, that's what I'm going to do first, including the uncomfortable conversations. If I got to have a conversation with you and I have a yucky thing to talk with you about, I'm going to do the social normities of starting the conversation. Then let's get the bad thing out of the way and then move forward.
Uh-huh. Always do the hard thing first, because then everything else is easy. Yeah. When you are remarkable, how can people reach out to you and work with you?
I am at www.willowgrovecounseling.net, and I I can work with individuals on a clinical level who live in New York State. But if they live outside of New York State and they want business guidance or personal guidance or like life coaching, that's something that I can provide to anyone, anywhere.
That's so awesome. I love the world that we live in because we can help people across the world. We're not just, you know, in our hometown. Like we can really expand and help a lot of people, which is really awesome.
Absolutely. I love that part of the things we have to offer. Technology today offers a lot more expansion of opportunity
Yep,
today.
that's for sure. And then I gotta ask you, so my slogan is your abilities are infinite. What does it mean to you?
That's a good question. I would say to me, infinite abilities are an indication of you don't know what you have not yet accomplished. And if you keep moving towards your goals, you're going to find so much untapped potential simply by pursuing it.
Yep, I agree with that. Awesome. And do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share with us?
Words of wisdom. I would just go with the two-word sentence to just be kind. Be kind to each other. Be empathetic. When all else fails, lean towards empathy, lean towards understanding, which
I
is a
agree
lot
with
more than
that.
two words.
It's all good. That's perfect, actually. So, well, Wayne, thank you so much for being here. I learned a lot. I know the audience did too. And now the audience knows who to reach out to get help. So,
Perfect.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Of course. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in it, the Nick Yerhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember your abilities are infinite.